The first task of the morning at the funeral supply store is to check the obituaries in the newspaper. Based on that, they confirm the date of the funerals and make sales calls. Everyone's life comes to an end, and if you'd say it's a job that guarantees a steady income, well, you might be right. Nowadays, there are many trendy and compact altars, and during recessions, some people come in wanting to honor a guardian spirit. My name is Bob, and I'm turning 30 this year. I work at the funeral supply store, mainly handling sales. The store I work for is a major chain spread out nationwide. Currently, I work at the main branch. I've never been too passionate about my job. I just think of it as something I do to eat. Perhaps because of that mindset, I don't put too much effort into my sales. Yet, strangely, my laid-back approach appeals to the customers, and my sales performance has been top-notch every month. Of course, many are envious of that. One of them is the sales manager at the head office. The manager has a subordinate he's very proud of having trained. He started the same time as me and is always the second best salesperson. He's been right below me since we started. The manager doesn't like the fact. One day, out of the blue, the manager handed me a transfer order. It was because an employee had fallen seriously ill, and a request had been made for staff replenishment at a branch. I vaguely recalled it being a seaside town in Maine. That's the situation, Bob. I'm counting on you. Please be an asset to that branch. You're the right man for the job. The manager said with a wide grin, patting my shoulder. It's basically a pleasant way to get rid of me. All the talk of reviving the branch is just an excuse. I suppose the manager wanted to get rid of a thorn in his side and recommended me. When you're told to transfer, you do it. That's what I always thought being a regular employee meant, so I accepted the transfer without fuss. The manager looked somewhat taken aback. I felt a little sorry for disappointing him to the end. Despite being transferred to a rural branch in Maine, my tasks remained the same. Check the obituaries first thing in the morning and make sales calls. Keep the store clean and provide customer service with a touch of empathy. I approached my job at the branch with the same attitude as at the main office. The branch manager seemed to take a liking to that attitude. Despite being transferred from the main office in what seemed like a demotion, my unwavering attitude apparently made a positive impression. He'd heard the top salesman from the head office was coming and probably thought I'd be sulking about the transfer. He mentioned that at the welcome party, and I couldn't help but laugh. The tasks are the same no matter where you go. I just do what I can, I said. The branch manager nodded enthusiastically in agreement. And so, my life in the main branch began. The town doesn't have a subway. Neither does it have a tram. Public transportation is mainly buses. During the morning rush, there are long lines at the bus stops. Standing there, feeling the sea breeze, somehow refreshed my mood every morning. This place might suit me better than I thought. As I took a deep breath, I suddenly heard a short scream nearby. Turning towards the sound, I saw a woman lying on the ground. In front of her, a man clutching a white cloth bag. He kept glancing back at the woman but was running towards me. He snatched her bag. Stop him. A girl's voice, sounding about 6 years old, resonated around. She's probably the child of the woman. Before I could think, I was already in motion. I'm not confident in my strength, but I trust my speed. I've always been a sprinter in the track team. Throwing my work bag aside, I chased the fleeing man. In no time, listening to my own breathing, I caught up to him. Grabbing his coat, I took him down by the side of the road. Many footsteps approached from behind. in elementary school. She spoke so assertively, impressing me. She seemed mature for her age, but still, she was a bit too grown up. Thank you so much. I was so absent-minded. He stole something precious of my father's. The one addressing me was the fallen woman. Probably the girl's mother. She looks young to be a mother. It's because Michelle is always daydreaming. It's not okay. With an exasperated expression, the woman flicks the girl's forehead. Hey, Emma, stop calling me by my name. Call me Mom. Remember, Michelle is Michelle. You can't keep daydreaming. Robert will be mad. From their conversation, it was clear they were mother and daughter. Soon, the police arrived. A bag, presumably the one snatched, was handed to the woman named Michelle for verification. From the bag, she carefully took out an item wrapped in a white cloth. Inside, it was a set of woodworking tools, typically used by master craftsmen. It's all here, everything's fine. Saying that to the officer, Michelle clutched the items close to her. Your father's a master craftsman, for artisans. These tools are as precious as life itself. I'm glad nothing's missing. She looked at me, surprised by my words. Oh, in my line of work, I deal with altars and religious artifacts, so I've seen craftsmen at work. She gazed at me, and I felt a bit defensive explaining. She murmured, is that so? After assisting with a quick police report, we were free to go. I received a call at work about the incident, and my boss was beyond thrilled to hear I caught a purse snatcher. I have a feeling my next shift will be awkward. After finishing up at the police station, I run into Michelle and her daughter at the entrance. Rough day, you okay? No injuries? I asked Michelle, something that had been on my mind. I was concerned, having seen Michelle's fall. Oh, I'm fine. No injuries. Hearing Michelle's reply, I expressed my relief. Hey, Robert wants to say thanks. I felt a tug on my suit, and turning around, I see her daughter, Emma, grinning at me. Hey, not Robert. Call him Grandpa, remember. Ignoring her mother's words, Emma reaches out with her tiny hand. My dad wanted to thank you. If it's not too much trouble, maybe you could come by the workshop. Michelle's offer was something I couldn't have hoped for more. Getting to visit a master carpenter's workshop. I was suddenly thrilled. Having always loved churches and historic sites, seeing the skills of a master carpenter was just a stroke of luck. Honestly, I wasn't in the mood to go to work anymore, so I decided to call my workplace and take the day off. Making that decision, I became excited about how the day would turn out. Thank you so much. Absolutely. I was so enthusiastic. Michelle looked a bit taken aback. Emma happily swung our joined hands, clearly in good spirits. After hitting the main road, we hailed a cab to go to the workshop. In the cab, Emma bombarded me with questions. From my age to details about my job, she wanted to know it all. Michelle, seeing Emma's antics, kept saying, "Don't, sweetie," while also apologizing to me. I'm so sorry. It's okay. I don't have anything to hide. I'll keep up with Emma as long as she's satisfied. Michelle, did you hear? He called me Emma. That's so cool. Emma cheered with delight. While Michelle looked a bit wary, I began to worry if I'd said something inappropriate. Oh, it's not like that. I just get nervous when meeting my dad. Noticing my anxiety, Michelle quickly tried to ease the tension. They seemed to be a family with some backstory. After about a 15-minute ride, we arrived at a workshop nestled in the mountainside. Once we got out, Emma grabbed my hand tightly, urging me to hurry along. The workshop was filled with the fresh scent of wood and the sound of chiseling. 5 apprentices halted their work and bowed when they saw Michelle. She acknowledged them with a nod and proceeded further into the workshop. Spotting a mid-production carving, I was captivated by its exquisite craftsmanship. It seemed to be a piece of a church gate. I was so annoyed that I inadvertently let out a sigh. Pretty impressive, huh? You've got an eye for it. A deep voice accompanied a tap on my shoulder. Turning around, I saw a man who looked every bit the seasoned craftsman, with a gleaming bald head. Emma yelled, "Robert," and hugged his legs. Robert playfully lifted her up, saying, "Call me Grandpa, right?" making a mock grumpy face. Emma, familiar with this play, giggled at his expression. "I'm Robert. How can I ever thank you? Really, I appreciate it." While holding Emma with one arm, Robert extended his other hand to me. I shook his hand in return. A smile naturally broke across my face. "You have the hands of a true craftsman. I respect that." His hands were rough, scarred from years of craftsmanship. Hands that I deeply admired. At my words, Robert scratched his head, seeming a bit embarrassed. That was how I met Robert, Michelle, and their family. Robert gave me a full tour of the workshop, answering all my questions with patience. "Thank you so much for showing me these amazing pieces. It's a real treat for the eyes." I repeatedly expressed my gratitude to Robert. "You know, I feel like I should be the one thanking you," Robert said with a hearty laugh. From that day, I began visiting the workshop quite frequently. Sometimes I'd get a call from Robert saying come over, and other times I'd be invited by little Emma. Every time, Michelle bowed apologetically to me. It seems she thinks I'm just putting up with the two of them. Robert seemed to have taken a liking to me, and we've even started going out for drinks. Right now, he seems most concerned about Michelle. When he's had a bit too much to drink, he always talks about her. She's a divorced single mother. I heard she got married pretty young. I was against the marriage, Robert would tell me over and over. Robert, who takes pride in his carpentry, apparently got too wrapped up in his work and neglected his family. As a result, he didn't notice his wife's illness until it was too late. By the time he took her to the hospital, the cancer had spread throughout her body, and it was too late. Michelle tearfully blamed him, asking why he hadn't taken better care of his family. From that day, a rift grew between Michelle and Robert. I can't do much other than listen to him vent, but I wish I could help in some way. Every time I see drunken Robert, I'm disappointed in my own inability to do anything. Things have taken a bad turn. In the morning, as soon as I got to work, the manager ran up to me, raising his voice. Apparently, there had been a major mistake at the headquarters. Details were still unclear, but there was a rumor that all the dedicated craftsmen declared an end to their contracts. It's hard to get news in our remote branch, far from the headquarters. If all the dedicated craftsmen cut off their contracts, production of the altars would halt. Our company prides itself on selling these self-produced altars. If their supply stops, it's a life or death issue. If the headquarters is facing financial troubles, the first to get cut would probably be the remote branches. It's no wonder the manager is panicked. I contacted a former colleague at the headquarters to get more details. Then, I uncovered a truly shocking fact. Turned out the cause of the issue was that the manager who had demoted me. At the main office, we have social gatherings with the craftsmen a few times a year. The folks who make it and those who sell it. A smooth relationship between the two directly affects sales. At such an important get-together, the manager, of all people, made a scene. He drunkenly ridiculed the craftsmen and belittled their work. When I heard that, I was floored. The manager had always looked down on the craftsmen. This led to many clashes between him and me, and was one of the reasons I fell out of favor. Even as the store opened, everyone seemed restless. In the midst of all this, we received a phone call. It was a call from the headquarters. "Bob, they want you back at the headquarters immediately. The president specifically requested you to try and persuade the craftsmen." Apparently, My good relationship with the craftsmen was well known even at the headquarters. I'm just a regular employee. I can't defy an order from the president. So I immediately boarded a plane to New York. At JFK Airport, a colleague was waiting for me, and we headed straight to the carpentry workshop. It must be really urgent. On the way to the workshop, I contacted Michelle. I was supposed to have a barbecue tonight with Michelle, Emma, and Robert. Emma made me promise to come without fail. I explained the situation to Michelle and asked her to relay the message to Emma and Robert. I understand. I'll let Emma and my father know. Excuse me, thank you. Just as I was about to hang up, Michelle stopped me. Hey, look, I may be overstepping my boundaries saying this, but no matter how you slice it, it's not your fault, Bob. It seems like you're always ready to shoulder all the blame, Michelle said. Her words took me by surprise. She was concerned about me. Her comforting words gave me strength and encouragement. Thank you, I'll do my best. I said that and ended the call. If the conversation had continued, I might have shown her a vulnerable side I didn't want her to see. It felt as if Michelle could see through my difficulty in relying on others. The thought of her earnest gaze came to my mind. It's hard to hide anything from those eyes. I thought to myself, Emma is a lot like Michelle. By the time I reached the workshop, I felt helpless. Even though I tried calling out from the entrance, no one answered. I could sense that there were people inside. Rejected at every turn, there was no opportunity for dialogue. The only thing I could do was head back to the headquarters. I reported to the boss about the situation, mentioning that this was going to be a long battle. The next day, I went to the workshop again from the morning. I could hear the sounds of work from inside. Despite calling out multiple times, the door was locked tight. I decided to sit by the entrance, hoping one of the craftsmen would come out. This went on for 3 days. The boss suggested taking some colleagues or managers with me, but I had a feeling that it would only cause more friction, so I insisted on going alone. Hello, it's Bob. Please hear me out. On the 4th day, just like the previous day, I went to the workshop in the morning and kept calling out from behind the closed door. Without our business, the workshop would suffer. I feared that these skilled craftsmen would have nowhere to go. That's what I was afraid of. I hoped they'd listen. I wished they'd understand that not every company is filled with just management-type people. With these feelings, I stood in front of the workshop. But admittedly, doing this every day was both mentally and physically draining. Sleepless nights filled with worry continued. This morning, I felt feverish. As I continued to wait, the door in front of me began to blur. It seemed my fever was rising. I couldn't cause a scene by collapsing here. I clenched my teeth and stood my ground. Then, out of the blue, someone tapped me on the shoulder from behind. I recognized this warm, thick hand. Wait, Robert, why are you here? Turning around, both Robert and Michelle stood there. In times like this, you can rely on me. You're too damn reserved, Robert said with a smile. Michelle explained that she accompanied Robert since he wasn't fond of flying. All the folks here are my apprentices, Robert said. I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Robert, with all his might, began knocking loudly on the workshop door, shouting for the craftsmen by name and repeatedly telling them to open up. It felt like only about 15 seconds had passed. The workshop door swung open in an instant. Can you forgive them this time for the sake of my reputation? Robert bowed deeply to the workshop owner. The craftsmen, who were not used to seeing their master bow, panicked and said, "Please lift your head. I'm truly sorry for what happened." I also bowed beside Robert. The owner of the workshop, noticing it was me bowing, looked surprised and said, "Didn't you get transferred?" I sincerely apologized and informed him that my boss would be demoted and transferred from the headquarters to a branch. If you make good stuff, the naysayers will naturally fade away. Robert patted the workshop owner on the shoulder in a comforting gesture. With Robert's help, the problem was resolved. The pending deliveries were completed. Robert and I returned to the branch and finally got back to our routine. Today, after work, I'm visiting Robert's workshop to see some ornaments in progress. "Was my father of any help to you?" Michelle softly approached and asked. "Absolutely. I couldn't have convinced anyone on my own. Your dad is a wonderful man." Upon hearing this, Michelle seemed troubled. Michelle always seemed distant towards Robert. "I've never thought of my father as wonderful." She seemed to believe that if he had cared more for the family, maybe your mother would have lived longer. She revealed that she got married right after high school because she wanted to have her own family sooner. "I was so focused on building a perfect family, that was my downfall." Michelle's ex-husband couldn't keep up with her passion for an ideal family. After their divorce, she realized her selfishness and said with a lonely smile, "My ex was the complete opposite of my father. Couldn't hold a job and didn't earn much." It was only after her marriage that she realized how much Robert loved them. "Robert still cares about you, Michelle. Whenever we go out for a drink, he talks about you. Maybe it's time to make amends." Michelle nodded deeply to my words and whispered, "Maybe you're right." It seemed their flowing relationship was imminent. 3 years later, I stood next to Michelle wearing a formal suit. Michelle looked dazzling in a white bridal gown. "Come on, Bob, you should be thanking me. Do you know how hard I worked to get you and Michelle together?" Beside a triumphant-looking Emma in a festive dress, Robert was laughing out loud. It was Emma who pushed me to propose to Michelle, which I had been putting off for a while. One evening, about 6 months ago, while I was gazing at Michelle in the workshop, Emma suddenly tripped me up and I fell backward. "How long are you planning to just stare?" The petite girl straddled me and, in anger, tapped on my chest, saying, "What's your plan? Chicken out." Wait a minute. I was taken aback by her sudden outburst. Seeing Emma on top of me, Michelle rushed over in a panic. "Hey, Emma, what are you doing?" Emma clung to me and wouldn't get off. Resigned, I proposed to Michelle right there, lying on the ground. "Michelle, will you marry me?" We kind of knew how each other felt, but we'd never expressed it. Michelle's face turned bright red. "Please stand up and ask me again." So I proposed to her a second time. Now, I live happily surrounded by my wonderful wife, our adorable daughter, and my respected father-in-law.